What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Filip Latocha, and today we are giving a post-Shamrock Shuffle 8K recap. So before we get into it, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you're already subscribed to the channel, enjoying the content, thanks so much. Love you guys a lot. Let's get into it. First things first, let's basically just kind of break down the Shamrock Shuffle's history with me in particular. So I've been racing the Shamrock Shuffle every year since 2016, except for 2020 and 2021 when the race was just effectively both postponed and canceled. So I don't remember my times in 2016 or anything like that, but I know it was one of those like first stage races to the gateway training block for the Chicago Marathon and all sorts of things to come like that. So historically, the Shamrock Shuffle has been like a good baseline point for things to come later on. And yeah, so I knew the race was happening this year, but I signed up for the race before I moved to Algonquin, which means that I knew at some point I was going to have to commute back into the city to do this race. Not a big deal, like, it's fine, but, like, you know, after you stay in the suburbs a little while, you're like, man, I don't ever want to go back to the city. So, reluctantly, I have to come back to the city and do this race, and I'm going to be kind of coming back for some other races as well. Oh, well. So, anyways, let's break it down. So, I've got a whiteboard here that I invested in for work. If you guys like the whiteboard idea, you know, just sound off at the end of the video for, you know, in the comment section if I should utilize this more in, like, maybe shoe reviews and other things, but we're just going to go for it. So, Shamrock Shuffle. The first time that you see here of 30 minutes and 45 seconds happened on March 12th, and that was my week and a half to, like, week out from race day simulation. And I did do that simulation in the Vaporfly Next Percent 2s on a treadmill at the gym. So, historically speaking, especially with the hot chocolate run that I did in Houston, 2 weeks out when I did that race simulation, I did manage to run about a 59 something time on the treadmill in that hour. And based on the training block that I had, my anticipation was that I was going to run a sub hour during the actual Houston race. And I was correct. I actually did a lot better than I did during Houston, or than I did on the treadmill during the actual race, because there's obviously a lot of other factors that kind of go into play. So at that time I figured, okay, cool. The Maffetone training thing is going to work well in terms of seeing what your 2 weeks out race simulation feel is going to be when you go on actual race day. So, seeing that I had a 30:45, my brain is now thinking, okay, I'm going to PR on race day, because in 2019, I ran the Shamrock Shuffle in 31 minutes and 31 seconds. So that puts me at like a 6:20, 6:21 minute per mile pace, and I was in really good shape for that race as well. So that's kind of just, you know, the preface of things to come. So basically, technically speaking, I PR'd this day in my 8K. So moving on, we're at race day, and I guess I could just give you guys the general summary, of course. I did finish the race in 30 minutes and 48 seconds on, you know, March 20th. So 8 days later, I'm able to break my PR of in the 8K. And we're going to kind of go into why I'm, you know, happy about this, but I could have done so much better. So let's just talk about race day from start to finish. So of course, you know, I wake up, actually, let me rephrase that. I go to sleep at like midnight, 1 a.m., and I'm not able to sleep at all. I'm probably like in and out, but I can't like close my eyes and just like wake up at like 5:30, 6 a.m., whatever time I wanted to wake up, and just kind of, you know, get along with the day. We do wake up at like 5:45. We're out of the house by like 6:10, 6:15, because the mindset here is, oh, the race is going to begin at 8. We better, you know, kind of get there as soon as possible. We know there's road closures and things like that, so get there as soon as possible. The drive from Algonquin to Chicago in the morning was about 40 minutes, so we timed everything really well, and we got to the city at like right before 7 o'clock in the morning, and as we get to the start line, it's kind of empty, and I'm thinking, oh wow, this is crazy, why is this so empty? And I realized that the race start is 8:30. So what happened was we ended up getting there super early. It's not like freezing cold, but it is cold, and I'm like, you know, kind of in like race mode ready, minus like wearing a jacket on. And I'm just kind of out in the cold for a little bit, just kind of waiting for things to go. I'm doing some stretching where I can, just trying to stay warm wherever possible. But the point is, we got there a little bit early. I could have tried to sleep in a little bit, or at the very least, like while we were in the Grant Park garage, just like try to take a nap for like 20, 30 minutes in the car. And then also, lesson learned is next time I'm definitely bringing like old stuff that I can wear, So like 2 minutes before the race starts, I can just like rip it all off, toss it for charity or like the thrift stores, wherever these like organizations take these things. So I have something I can be warm in at the start line of the race, rather than keep something, you know, like a more illustrious piece of clothing that I don't want to part ways with, but don't want to race with because it's just not going to be efficient. So that's kind of what happened on the start there. I did end up peeing like 2 times before the race started, and this is obviously where we're going to preface where we're going into here next. I did have like a little bit of coffee, a little bit of pre-workout before the race. So obviously the diuretics do kick in kind of at spontaneous times, and usually I'm able to time it pretty well, but this time it was just completely unpredictable, and like literally 20 minutes before race start, I have to like pee really bad, but I can't get out of the corral because the corral's closed at exactly 8 o'clock and the race starts at 8:30, so I'm thinking, dang it, like this is just not going to be a good race day, and like I have to pee, and I'm thinking to myself, like, hopefully while I'm running, like everything here will just kind of like relieve itself pressure wise, and like we're just going to be good and I can get with the race. So of course the race kicks off, the gun goes off. My thought process immediately is just take it easy in the first section of this race. Like everybody's just bombing it, right? They're going like 6 minute per mile, maybe like 5:50, 5:30. I don't know what they were running, but that was like the A corral, right? So it's elites, A, B, C, etc. And you know, I'm just taking it easy, and my watch time says that my first mile was about 6:26, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, that's not good, because if I want a PR, I have to run 6:20 per minute per mile or better, or I'm running negative splits. So I'm thinking, okay, 6:26 per mile. It doesn't feel like I'm working too hard. Everybody that just went like balls to the wall in the first mile are beginning to kind of ease back, and I'm starting to pass these people up now, is kind of what's happening. What I later learned is that my first mile, according to the Shamrock Shuffle times, was about a 6:05, 6:07. So that is also a really good sign that I could push a 6:07 in the first mile and feel extremely comfortable with it. So at this point in the race, like I don't feel too much like pressure from like, you know, a full bladder or anything like that. And by the 5K, I've run a 19:09, which realistically speaking is a really good time overall in like a distance kind of race. I guess if you're trying to run like a Boston, you're a little bit fast, but that's okay. That's neither here nor there. But yeah, that is about 6:10 per mile pace for effectively the 5K. So I'm gradually kind of slowing down a little bit, which is fine. That's kind of what I'm intending. There's a little bit of hills at the beginning of the race. There's a lot more twists and turns. There's a slightly different course. No big deal, okay? So at this point, I think at the 5K, I'm feeling good. It's like the bladder still feels kind of full, but it's not hindering my performance. Like, honestly, shout out to the Vaporfly Next Percent 2s. I'm feeling smooth like butter in these shoes. I feel like I'm gliding. It doesn't feel like I'm getting some like air zoom pocket reaction every time I slap the ground. It's just like when I land, my foot just kind of like hits, and I get that rebound from the carbon plate and the Zoom X rubber, and I'm gliding in this shoe. Like I didn't expect this to be this comfortable in the shoe, and I'm just having a great time. Like the Vaporfly Next Percent 2 is now 2-0 on excellent racing shoes for race day. So, are we missing anything? No, I think we got all the notes here. I guess we're just going into race details, more or less. So, I guess by the time we're at mile 4, like really close to mile 4 actually, now we're getting a little bit more ups and downs, and like what's happening is I'm starting to feel nauseous because there's a lot more pressure from the bladder, and it's pushing against my stomach and my core, and it's just not feeling very good, and I am beginning to get a little nauseous, and I do ease off a little bit. I do recall at some point running maybe like a 6:25, a 6:30 pace because I've slowed down thinking I was going to puke, and like I know from past experience, I'm not going to puke during this race. I'm just feeling nauseous and I'm dry heaving, and even if I try to take in fluids, it's going to just be a weird reaction overall with like this particular sensation I'm experiencing. So by the time I cross mile 4, you know, my soundtrack is kind of just like exploding. It's feeling good. Actually, we should probably sound off the power song that kind of got me through the nauseous points, like immediately after and caught me back in pace. I'm going to post a song here. I think it's called Worm of Doom, but it is by Dance with the Dead. And like if you listen to this song and you imagine yourself racing, and then your stride is matching the beats of this song, you're going to think like, yeah, this is like, it's a pretty good tempo. It's not like 180 tempo, but it's like maybe 160, 165 perhaps. And yeah, no, it just felt really good. Like this was the song for me to like kind of power myself back into the race. And by the time we get to like the last stretch of the race, which at this point most people know it's the climb on the Roosevelt Avenue Bridge to like the museum, the Field Museum, and then you kind of turn back on Columbus Drive to get to the finish line. That uphill, that was like an extremely painful point when it came to the run. Not just for like my legs, but like definitely in the core area with like, you know, the whole bladder situation. Like going uphill, there was more pressure just on the front area of the body, and it was bad. I was like just holding on for dear life not to like puke again while climbing this hill. And there were a few guys that passed me up in the process that I'd like passed up before, and I'm thinking, okay, fine, whatever, not a big deal. And I'm like, okay, cool, they're wearing Alpha Flies and they're running faster than me on the hills. Like, I've really kind of lost the speed here for sure. So by the time we loop back around Columbus Drive, you know, I'm able to get my senses back together. It's like now a gradual downhill, and like you can start picking up the pace if you really wanted to. So that's what I did. I ended up picking up the pace at the very end of the race, and everyone that passed me up on the hill, I managed to pass right back up. And I saw on my watch time I ran a 30:49, but, you know, the race time officially was about a 30:48, and I just couldn't believe it, you know. I PR'd with pain in my stomach core area, and even at the end of the race, I didn't, like, collapse or anything from exhaustion. I, like, finished, and I'm thinking, man, I gotta get to the bathroom quick. So I, like, continued just, like, doing, you know, an easy jog to the restrooms. I grabbed my medal, banana, some water, and I just keep going, and, like, that was basically the end of the race day. So this is kind of where you would probably understand from my perspective as to why this was both like a happy moment and like a moment where I'm like, dang, and like this could have been so much better. Like, I'm perfectly happy with a 30:45 unofficially. I'm also really happy with the fact that I PR'd during the 8K after, you know, 3 years of not racing this particular race. But given the conditions, if I know that maybe I could have like used the bathroom one more time before this race started, and like there was like, you know, no pain in the body and I could take in fluids pretty easily, I could have imagined, and this is a real big stretch now, like I would have achieved my A goal, which would have been to break the sub 30. That means in the span of those 5 miles, I would have cut 10 seconds per mile off every single time. So we're essentially, you know, trying to say that I would have been running sub 6 this entire race. And would I have done it on Sunday? Who knows? But mentally, I was in the place to start running sub 6, and I think it could have been possible had I not had like these, you know, these issues or whatever you want to call them. But again, this is just sandbagging at this point. At the end of the day, I'm very happy with the fact that I PR'd by a little bit over 50 seconds here with, you know, the 30:48. So that's the time to beat now if I ever do another 8K in that same style course. If I just do an 8K anywhere else, you know, that's kind of how it goes. So I can't really say more than that other than, you know, this is the gateway into my new training block, into triathlon season, into marathon season. And yeah, so speaking on those notes, I guess I can provide a brief update, I suppose. I know that I'm going to be doing the Chicago 13.1 in June, so I'll be back downtown to run a half marathon at some point. So distance legs, I'm prepping those for sure. Speaking of that, I actually could provide one more update. After the race, the only thing that was sore was really my calves. Like the hamstrings, quads, everything was good again. So I think it's a function of this shoe to like really activate your calves a lot more. And again, this is the same thing that happened at the hot chocolate race, except I was like totally destroyed during the hot chocolate. But like because this was a 5-mile race versus a 15K, you know, different kind of story. So yeah, Chicago 13.1 is on the list. And the Vaporfly Next Percent 2 is looking like it's going to be the shoe that I'm going to be racing with again. Hopefully it's this still this same shoe once I can kind of like clean them up a little bit. Because, you know, the shoe is just doing me very well this season. I do have the Chicago Triathlon on my list as well. In addition to, you know, a Silverthorne Mountain training camp for maybe July, maybe August. We'll see how that plays out. I am looking to sign up for some races in the local area, some of which will be the Lake Zurich Triathlon, hopefully do the Olympic distance. The Chicago Marathon is actually my B race, big B race this year. And the reason for that is because, again, I didn't qualify and I would have to do it as a charity runner. Not a big deal to do that, but I have actually signed up for the lottery for the New York Marathon, which happens a month after the Chicago Marathon. So if I qualify for New York, that's going to be my A race for this season. And then the S race, which is like above A, is obviously still Tokyo 2023. That marathon is not left my, you know, my sights. I'm definitely going to get that race done. That's what this channel is about, is getting the Tokyo Marathon done. So those are some of the races there. I know that I've got Ironman Wisconsin 70.3 in September around my birthday weekend. And there's probably a few other smaller races that need to be done as well. I'll announce those as they come along, but those are the big races that I'm looking forward to. So I think we're going to end the video here. Overall, very happy with the Shamrock Shuffle. Glad that I'm in a better fitness so far than I was in 2019, despite, you know, the circumstances leading up to the very race. But, you know, it is what it is. Yeah, that's just it. It's like, it's not going to be perfect. Some races will be, some won't be, but that's where you start appreciating, you know, the best times of your life. So, anyways, I'm going to end the video here. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.